This is the Earthbound Parenting Podcast, where we discuss all things pregnancy, birth, postpartum, partnership, parenting, and how to take radical responsibility in each one. Being earthbound is a wild adventure, so allow me to be your guide. I'm your hostess, Chaya Schwal, traditionally trained birth guardian, birth educator, and mother of four unassisted home birthed boys. In today's episode, I had the privilege of interviewing Dr. Torrie Cheff. She's my own chiropractor, the chiropractor of my sons, and she's also just a brilliant mind in the area of pediatric chiropractic care. We talk all about the nervous system regulation, the sort of a little bit about the general benefits of chiropractic adjustments, but specifically and especially how an infant can benefit from chiropractic adjustments and how that can affect their nervous system overall, how it can affect the ecosystem, the ethos of family life in those early days postpartum, and everything going forward, all the benefits and amazing things that it does for their development as they're getting older. So, without further ado, here's the interview. Dr. Torrie Cheff is a wife, mother, and chiropractor at Missoula Family Chiropractic in Montana, where she has been serving families for over 15 years. Specializing in pediatric and family care, she is passionate about supporting nervous system health from the very beginning of life. Through neurologically focused chiropractic care, Dr. Cheff helps families build a strong foundation for growth, resilience, and long-term wellness. Welcome again. This is the Earthbound Parenting Podcast. And I'm glad, even though we know each other, you're my own chiropractor. But I'm really excited that you agreed to come on here and share some of your wisdom. I know you've recently done even more in-depth, I think, training on pediatric chiropractic specifically, right? So yeah, I was inspired by that, and I definitely wanted to gather your wisdom, to
Yeah, thank
collect
you
it
so
and
much
share it with
for
people.
having me on. Yeah, no, I've been taking care of kids, since 2010, but yeah, like you said, recently have just upgraded everything. So I feel like I'm a little better at communicating what I already knew before. So,
Nice. Yeah. So let's just dive right in. And I definitely have gotten this response when I mention it, when I mention that my kids do chiropractic and I had, my infants get adjusted and everything like that. Usually people are pretty surprised to hear that newborns can benefit from chiropractic care. So why, walk us through why a baby be, could benefit from getting adjusted right at those infant, even newborn, early infant stages.
yeah, no, I love this question because typically when you say a newborn adjustment, as anybody who's ever been adjusted before thinks of how they were adjusted, right? Maybe as an adult, and it's completely different. So I love this question because once you get the information and you're understanding why an adjustment is needed, or even for a child to be checked, or a baby, a newborn baby to be checked, you won't be able to unsee it, right? So like we know it doesn't phase us that our kids, as soon as they start getting teeth, we go and get their teeth checked, or their hearing is checked immediately, right? Like what are their APGAR scores? Can they, how are they, how are all their senses, right? And
Right.
so everything, pretty much every single system is checked except the nervous system, besides reflexes, I should say,
Yeah, I
because
guess. Yeah.
reflexes are part of it. But um, if you think about how the stressors can develop even inside the womb, it'll make much more sense. So I'm going to start there. Is number one, when we look at development of a child, the very first thing in the womb to develop is the neural tube.
Right.
So it's a tube of the nerve, and it's the nervous system that branches off and develops every other system. It's the core system that controls all the other systems. So when I interview parents before I see their infant, I the first question I ask is about maternal stress.
Mm,
because we think about the, umbilical cord being the connection of food and nutrients between the mom and the baby. But what we also are doing is programming their nervous system from the very
absolutely.
beginning. They are feeling stressors. They are feeling calm and relaxed. They are learning how to balance those two systems from the beginning, even though, they're unaware of it, but we're programming our child that way. So stressful pregnancies can
Yeah.
really start interfering in the sympathetic nervous system response already. Um, then there's the physical part, right? Where if there's a breech position or sunny side up or posterior position and different constraints within the uterus, then
Right.
there also is a more structural type of thing that can happen is
Mm,
um, just from being in the womb, and then the birth process. So I'm not exactly sure who all listens to your podcast, but I would imagine people who are maybe getting ready to give birth or are already given a birth a couple times and maybe, just growing their family. But the birth process, even when it's perfect and great and amazing experience, and you've done all the right things and you've had no complications through that birth, there still can be stressors on the mom and baby from a fast birth or a long pushing phase or if there's an elbow or a shoulder up or whatever it may
yeah, one of
be.
those hands that are coming
Mhm.
out with baby's head and all of that. Yeah.
Yep, all of that. Plus, and then we add to it more traditional births, which is why probably more and more people are choosing, more home births and supportive births with doulas and everything like that, because there's a lot of intervention that happens in hospitals, and sometimes,
Right.
thank God, needed saving lives if
Right.
needed, right? But forceps and vacuums and just assisted births where there's pulling and twisting, or a C-section where
Right.
there's a lot of tension on that neck at the very beginning.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
C-sections are not just like unzipping a Ziploc bag and pulling a baby out. They can be very hands-on, very handsy, very
yep.
aggressive.
Since I had never had that experience myself, or like, because I have three children, I've gave birth three times, and I never had to have a C-section, but I know people who have. And when I watched a video of it, my life was changed. I was like, this is what I'm seeing literally in practice when I'm people are like,
Wow.
"You have a C-section," and then you can just see the torque at the beginning of their nervous system, and thank God that, like, these are needed, but at the same time, like, this is why infants need to be checked and nervous systems need to be checked.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really powerful. I think it's something, I mean, we end up talking about this at my own visits like fairly often because we're both kind of nerds about this kind of stuff. But it is a really good reminder, even for someone who might be more familiar with chiropractic care and stuff like that. I think most people don't consider the birth journey, the like in a presentation that I have, I talk about how even though in the obstetric field there's something called the passage and the passenger, and the baby is called the passenger, and it sounds very like, oh, they're just sitting in the car hanging out. But babies are extremely active, an active participant in the process of birth. And even that aspect of it, let alone the cardinal movements that they're having to go through, as you said, during the pregnancy, all the things that they're a participant of, as they're developing and all these different things, mom's body, how that affects baby's position and how baby is developing. And maybe, I have a friend who just had her baby, and her baby, as she was pregnant, and it's her third baby, kept telling me how, oh, she's in the same spot her sisters were in. They just love my, left side. She loves to be in this particular spot. She never moves anywhere else. And she's since had her baby, and she's talked about the sleeping habits and some of the not she's not super struggling with breastfeeding or anything like that, but just like some habits that the baby has, favoring one side, things like that. And I have pointed out, or I think of the fact that, oh, well, she favored one side in utero. She's still favoring that side when she's on the outside. And maybe there's some, maybe she could benefit from chiropractic care to help baby balance out. And I know there's more to it than just balancing someone out physically, but I think of that. But I think most people don't. They're not considering the the journey. I mean, how if we picture ourselves in that position, because we all were infants once, if we just imagine ourselves balled up, in a tight space for a long period of time, and then finally we're free, and we have these little habits, and we can't help ourselves so much with our own muscle tone and all of that. Like, it makes more sense when we think about it, I think, in our own adult bodies, with like, even if we sit down for too long, especially if we're getting older, we just sit down for too long and we stand up and we're like, ugh.
Mm-hmm.
And how much more for these babies that were in these very cramped spaces. Again, the journey of the birth event itself. Yeah, there's just so much that they've endured, um, for better or for worse, a beautiful birth experience or something that was maybe a little bit more traumatic. It doesn't matter. Anywhere in between, it was still a lot for for a
Yeah.
baby's body. So yeah, I think it's a good reminder for people to consider all the
Yeah,
things
and
that
I
we
think
mentioned.
when you were saying too, you were right on. Like when you're not really looking at your baby objectively, going, oh, I think they're favoring this side a little more, or oh, there's a little bit of head tilt over here, and like why that would even matter. And that's like you said, okay, it's not just about making sure that they're symmetrical and
Right.
on both sides, but those give us clues into how the nervous system is functioning. So I always equate that, especially because you usually see in infants that the head tilt or a favoring of a one side. It's one of the easiest things to detect for someone who like has no idea any, of other things to look for.
Right.
And when the C1 and C2, which is the first two vertebrae in the neck, when those are out of alignment, which is the most common in the birth process because the way the neck has to fully turn with the shoulders and the body, those messages right there, those nerve signals are actually right near the brainstem. And so
Mm.
you actually have 60% more what we call afferent messaging to the brain. So the brain, if it's sending messages down to the body, that's called efferent. And when you send messages from the body back up to the brain, that's called afferent. So it's
Okay.
in energy. So um, when the C1 and C2 are off, that gives that baby so much more input to the brain, abnormal input to the brain, that
Mm.
other systems actually start to go into overdrive, or there's not enough kind of the body's attention goes to it. So, what are those
Mm.
things? Sleep, digestion, right? And
Yeah.
nursing, right? Yep, sleeping, eating, and pooping. So, those are the other signs that once you start learning about the nervous system, then you can look like, oh, they look uncomfortable while they're digesting, or they
Yeah.
have a lot of times, maybe the reflux issue, right? They're getting milk in,
Hmm.
but it's not staying down.
Yeah.
So, or hey, my baby's not sleeping more than 60 minutes at a time. So this is where the little things like the head tilt or favoring one side can become a much, you know, bigger issue
Yeah.
with systems, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm sure that they're like, if, for the parents that are listening to this or watching this, I'm sure that they're like, I'm sure light bulbs are going off for sure for people that are even just around newborns and have been able to see that for themselves. And it's funny because, I mean, those three things are the most stress inducing, early days things for every parent. And I know, midwives have their like checklists of like, make sure you're checking out this, and this, and, whatever it is. And it all pretty much all centers around those three things. And they're very important. But again, it's funny to me because I think very seldomly people are also advising, they send them with the checklist. Okay, make sure they're blah, 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 blah. But no one's ever at the top of that list saying, and go see your chiropractor,
Mhm.
go get them adjusted, like go find somebody who, knows what they're doing and can adjust your infant. And then, keep an eye on this, and this. Um, and I just think like how helpful would that be? How much better would that be, make the experience for families if they had this information right out the gate and knew to go get their babies adjusted, and that this would affect all of that. This could benefit them, help them with their development, with their nervous system communication and all of that. And then again, like this downstream effect. And how often do we just look at the symptoms and say, okay, keep dealing with the symptoms, keep dealing with the symptoms, and we're not looking at the root cause of these things. And yeah, and not that being maladjusted, I guess, is like the magic cure all. It's not like snake oil or anything. It's not the one and only thing that could possibly be creating
Mhm.
colic and, nursing issues or whatever. But like it's a really easy and really great starting point, I think, to begin with a proper adjustment chiropractic care for mom and baby. And I do want to talk to you on another time about chiropractic care for moms in pregnancy and postpartum and all of that. But as far as today goes, for sure, newborn chiropractic adjustments is it's what's on the platter for today.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and I really love that point that you made though, because sometimes when you hear about how adjustments can actually help a child, and we're looking at, okay, eating, sleeping, and pooping, but then there's other factors, right? And so sometimes you write it off because it's like, well, it could be because I'm dairy sensitive, or it could be because, and you have all these
Right.
other things, which 100% all of it matters. But what's been really cool for me to see over the years is that when we put those things together, when you have a properly connected brain to body, body to brain, right? A properly functioning nervous system with no interference, then when you are working with a latching consultant, or
Right.
then you are, doing, a PT or an OT sort of things for babies, depending on, the situation. But then the therapist, what I'm finding, or this other specialist is going, wow, this is actually progressing faster than my other cases. And what we see is this, that when the nervous system is properly functioning, the body can relearn habits and patterns so much easier,
Mm,
right? Like you said, it's not the only thing. Sometimes it is the only thing, but
yeah.
sometimes it's the only thing. A lot of things
Yeah.
are multifactorial too. So that's a good point that you have.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and could you briefly explain, like, when we're talking about nervous system, I know what you mean because we've
Mhm.
talked about this a lot, and I think my head's in that space a lot more than the average bear. But can you explain just briefly, like nervous system? What are you talking about? Because I think generally people think nervous system and it's just, oh, I'm really stressed or now I'm chill, I'm just relaxing kind of thing. Like, how does all of that, what are we actually addressing here? Are we trying to just like give the baby a chill pill and or like address how they're really stressed out about their upcoming schedule or something. But like, what are we actually talking about here? We
Yeah,
probably
that's
should have
totally,
done a brief
we
intro.
probably should have started there, huh? So primarily what we've been talking about so far is the central nervous system, which is the brainstem, and what is the extension of the brain, which is the spinal cord that's nice and protected through the spine. Then you have your peripheral nervous system that branches from your spine out to, all your muscles, cells, tissues, and your autonomic nervous system, which is all the organ function. So a lot of people have um, probably heard of the vagus nerve, right? The vagus nerve is very important for the parasympathetic part of your nervous system. So your rest and digest, and
Right.
really, from your central nervous system, everything else functions, whether it's your muscles, your tissues, or your organs. Everything is coordinated by your nerves, your brain, brainstem, spinal cord, and the nerves branching out. Is that a little bit more clear for visual?
Yeah, I think that's helpful. Yeah.
Really, it's how we interface with the world, right? So like if you think about all of our senses is the nervous system. It's our brain perceiving touch or smell or sound or our sight with light. But it's also how we're responding. So if you're in a stressful environment, your nervous system is going to help you survive in that stressful environment. And probably the most common analogy is, a bear chasing you. If a bear is chasing you, your nervous system is going to, pump more blood to your muscles and increase your blood sugars and, get that cortisol going, which is going to help you. Right. And so our nervous system also has to have that other side of being able to calm down and relax when it's time to sleep and heal and repair. So that's more of like the function of the nervous system is interfacing with the environment. So that this is the bigger kind of reason why it's so important as we're developing that we can perceive and adapt to environmental stressors properly.
Right. Yeah. Getting daily exercise in is so valuable, yet can be so overwhelming for busy moms and busy life in general. Don't fret, BirthFit has your back. BirthFit provides fitness programs to enhance the adaptability and resilience of our neuromuscular systems through efficient, intentional movement and training for women in all seasons and cycles of life, specifically preconception, pregnancy, and healing postpartum. BirthFit and the women who created it are legit, and I'm excited to share with you 20% off any BirthFit program you purchase from their website when you use code HAYA. Support your body so your body can support you and this new phase of motherhood. Go check them out today. So everything you've just described and everything we talked about prior to that introduction to nervous system, that explanation. How does an infant chiropractic adjustment differ from, like you mentioned in the very beginning, that like we all kind of picture an adult adjustment, and it's there's all kinds of like videos on YouTube and social media where it's these funny, they have like a skeleton model and then they're like doing goofy stuff and making it look like they're cracking limbs off and all that kind of stuff. That's not that's not the experience for a lot of people, and I would say maybe a good chiropractor is probably not doing those things. But even so, like, what are the differences as a good chiropractor yourself? What are the differences between an adult adjustment and an infant adjustment?
Yes,
And how,
absolutely.
and actually, as you explain that explain to us also, please, how the adjustments change as that child is growing and, God willing, staying in that good habit of seeing their chiropractor and all of that.
Yeah. First of all, first tip of the day is don't watch chiropractic YouTube videos.
Right. Yeah.
They
They're
are
ridiculous.
terrifying. Oh my gosh, I cannot watch them. But
It's
yeah,
fun.
a lot of people do. Because they're curious, I think, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, the infant adjustment is so much different. It's like if you can just erase what you know about regular adult adjustments. So much different because especially we're talking about a child who can't hold their head up. They have
Yep.
not developed, their motor system is not even developed yet. And so there's no such thing as, really neuromuscular tensions and the things that we hold. And nor are their bones and segments really completely formed yet. And so there's no such thing as like popping and cracking in infant, spine. So everything is so light force, where we're either using, a pinky or just finding the area which we use nerve scans or temperature differential devices so we can see what the nervous system is doing there. But yeah, just it's everything is so light and just releasing tension areas is like less than I mean, if you look at go back to when we were talking about what it takes sometimes to get the baby out and the pulling and the twisting that involves, it's like comparative to that, it looks like we're not doing anything really.
Like a feather.
Like a
Feather.
feather,
Yeah.
yeah. So I do have a video online, and I am happy to share those things because sometimes it's hard to describe exactly what it looks like. But you barely know unless I'm explaining it to the mom and dad as I'm doing it. They probably would think I'm just holding their baby, right? I'm
Yeah.
just I'm just doing things so subtly and working with those tension spots so easily that it's not very impressive or exciting that it's so light force in that way. So
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've witnessed infant chiropractic with a mutual uh, friend, colleague, not my colleague, but a colleague of yours, a mutual community member, friend, Dr. Davis. I've had him on the podcast before, actually, a while ago, and he adjusted. I think this was before you and I got together.
Yes.
But yeah, he adjusted one of my boys, and it was funny. It was as a parent, I had seen my older children get adjusted, but I'd never seen like new tiny little baby
Yes.
infant adjustment, and it really was like I remember looking, just being like, did he do anything? What's going
Yeah.
on? Has he done the thing yet? And he just sort of like, put the baby up here at a certain point and then handed him to me. And I was like, okay, I guess, I guess that, I mean, and he was explaining, but it just,
Yeah.
I think honestly, I was half listening. I was mostly just watching and just thinking about how nothingness that's all seemed to be, but there were clear differences, clear changes in him, and he had some issues with my son had some issues with what ended up being a tongue tie and that sort of thing. But just right off the bat, some of the major struggles that we were going through in those early weeks relating to all of that. The going to get him adjusted made a big difference. It didn't like solve all our problems. It wasn't some magic solution because it was kind of a more in-depth situation with my son, but it made a huge difference. And I actually had a semi one-to-one comparison because my firstborn had a very similar situation, and I didn't know then about infant chiropractic care. And so he didn't get adjusted at all while we were dealing with all of that. And it was kind of a wild difference to witness with my own eyes the differences in the two children, and remembering how my firstborn was and the things he was struggling with. And it's like one of those things where I do have a little bit of like mom guilt about it, because I wish I could, go back in time and tell myself, go take him to the chiropractor. Because yeah, there were a lot of struggles that I think we could have avoided, or could have been a lot less impactful if we had gotten him adjusted. And I was very grateful for the knowledge when we were encountering the similar thing with my newer son. All of that to say, yes, it was kind of funny to see um, the adjustment, and that it was like super super light for sure.
Yeah, and what one of the other biggest differences between adult and infant adjusting is, okay, so if you are an adult and you have been adjusted, or maybe you're not and you can just imagine with me here for a second, it's like you usually feel a difference, right? You're
Right.
usually going, okay, I feel better. So like you've experienced it. You know that your body functions better. You know that you might sleep better or that can handle stress better. But an infant, like, how do you know if what we did is working, right? And so that's where we also have what we call neurological soft signs that we measure. So if your baby has not been adjustment and suddenly they slept for 4 hours straight, we're going, oh, I think their nervous system's regulating, right? Or like if they're not able to latch on very well and we do an adjustment and now suddenly over the next 3 days, the latch has improved greatly, we're going, wow, like this is the nervous system regulating and coordinating everything.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the cool part too about like they can't communicate with us, but you can see differences in the child. Like even this one child that came in, his very first adjustment, he was just fussy baby, and his mom and her sister brought him in, and we did the first adjustment with him, and it was like I hit a mute button because he was like, was stop crying. He went, got back in the car seat, which he usually did not like the car seat. He did fine. Went back to the car. Like 2 minutes later, the sister comes back in. She's like, I'm going to make an appointment for myself because that baby just changed in like 5 minutes. And so she's,
Wow.
but that's the other thing too, is how are we knowing what we're doing is working? And that's where a lot of that history, comes in of what the child has been dealing with from the womb, the stress, the birth process, those early nursing years or days to, how can we see these imbalances and how can we measure the improvement of them too?
Yeah. That's it is kind of amazing how we there's so many things that I think as parents, and maybe as a society who is maybe somewhere near, newborns and that sort of stuff, we've sort of created this reality that, oh, babies they just don't sleep at all. Oh, they just, everybody's got all these issues with latch, and they just, they poop and then they don't, or they're really gassy and then they're not, and it's just like, it's just like how it goes, and we just deal with it. We kind of, and a lot of the, these mothers are suffering through a lot of these experiences. And I know, because of the world that I live in, there are a lot of moms that, in telling me about past experiences that they had, oh, I was struggling with this and the baby just wouldn't sleep, and I could never feed him on this side. I always had to be the other side, or we just couldn't make it work, and that was so painful for the mother, dealing with that imbalance in her own body, and then, the sleep patterns, all these different things. And they, I think it takes a lot for moms to even go ask for help. And it's so upsetting to me when moms do go ask for help and everybody just sort of like, oh, it's just how it goes, or there's nothing you can do about it. It just like, you know, sort of brush them off, maybe gaslight and do all that fun stuff that's really great. Um,
Mm.
and it's I think this is partly why I wanted to have you on so that we could talk about this because chiropractic care, getting these adjustments for newborns, it matters on multiple levels. And I feel like having a well-regulated, well-adjusted infant is going to have ripple effects on the family dynamic and then things like that the sister who was like, you know what, sign me up because I want to sleep like that kid's sleeping now, that sort of thing. We joke about, oh, people want to sleep like a baby, and they're like, I don't want to sleep like my baby. My baby wakes up every 30 minutes or something like that. I want to sleep like my husband. That's the big joke, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But I think it's we're missing this key. I think this key to unlocking the door of actual like regulate like everybody can be regulated just from that one simple uh that one simple element change, and then and then hopefully everybody's getting adjusted and that sort of thing so that they're helping their own bodies and all that stuff. But it's wild to me how even if we just start with, let's say, the whole family, they're skeptical about chiropractic care or something like that. If we just start with the an infant adjustment, I think that would be the like catalyst for families really contemplating, because it's it's so simple. You can see there's very like I think the changes are obvious when it comes to infants. There aren't very many modes, and if anybody's familiar with well, maybe I shouldn't say the names out loud, but a certain movie that's by a big child's movie conglomerate that where the whole premise of the movie is that there's these personalities, there's different characters assigned to the different personalities. Um, and it's funny that in that movie, the like infant stage or baby stage, I think it is, there's just the one like character that's representing the whole baby's like nervous, like psyche and all of that. And then as the child gets older, there's a few more that's added and added and added. And it kind of is that way, I think, with the cues that we get from our infants as well. And when they are able to have, when their own body is able to communicate with itself uh, appropriately as designed, then all of the communication, methods that they have, which are like five total things, are all online and functioning as they should. And it's very easy to pick up on what they need. And I mean, sometimes it's, when they're crying, and we're overwhelmed, as moms, we're overwhelmed and I don't know what you need, that's a little bit different.
Hmm.
But I think even then, I think sometimes when we have a baby that needs an adjustment, for example, I'm thinking again of my youngest that was getting adjustments. His cries changed. It was this sort of, when he was crying, it was a little bit like this shotgun blast of and I feel like after we were getting his adjustments and these other issues were sort of like subsiding and everything, his cries, I felt, communicated more clearly to me. I was able to discern a little bit better between what he actually needed. And maybe I'm just a crazy person, but I feel like that's true. I felt like I could hear him better too. And so again, I feel like that's kind of the magic of proper, chiropractic care, not the internet video skeleton stuff, but the proper stuff that you're talking about and that you do. So what what are some of the neat things that you were learning about in your recent, like the recent thing that you were doing? Because you were when we were talking privately, like you seemed really
Oh, yeah.
excited about the stuff that you were working on. So like, what is do you want to share? Like, just
Yeah,
nerd
sure.
out for a minute?
Yeah, sure. It is totally neuro nerd stuff that I won't get into. It's called, it was, so if you like listening to other podcasts, or if your listeners want possibly a different podcast to go further into this topic, is called the Pediatric Experience. And there is a certification to get, because not all chiropractors do that, infant on and taking care of what we say the perfect storm children, right? So we see a lot of sensory issues these days,
Yeah.
including things like autism, but even before then, um, looking at what are the root causes of these sensory issues? What are the root causes of your teenager having anxiety?
Mm.
Come from
Wow.
can that come from the birth process, or having subluxation, or those misalignments, or that nerve interference from the very beginning? Um,
Wow.
so we took a deep dive into what's called the 5 Ds, or the 10 Ds of subluxation, which talks all about how the brain, the nervous system can be interfered with from the very beginning, and how that caused disapprobation and dyskinesia and everything, dysregulation, disorganization. And so just
Wow.
we did a deep dive into the nervous system pieces of it, but then also, um, when you have an infant that's fussy, or a child that has sensory issues and doesn't want someone touching them, how do you get them adjusted?
Mm.
And
Wow.
so
Yeah.
also is an entire, we're looking at how some of these offices are getting amazing results with, kids that don't even want to be touched.
Wow.
so
Wow.
so that's the kind of exciting part about this, is we're looking at, okay, how do we not only help kids that have um, all of these sensory issues, or gut issues, or immune system constantly sick issues, or the teenagers with anxiety? How do we help those kids? But then also, how do we get upstream from it and truly prevent these things, and not
Yeah.
just develop more programs and more things for the kids who are developing these problems? And so that's where I just get really excited about more chiropractors going into chiropractic for infant adjusting specifically. And so we're getting ahead of it instead of behind it. So
That's
the
amazing.
future of it is looking really cool if we can keep educating people, which is why, thank you so much for helping us get the word out about this, because you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know
Right.
your child's life can be different by doing a simple intervention
Right.
like chiropractic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, that's really exciting. That's really cool because I'm thinking, yeah, I mean, there's so many applications to that, so many examples actually. I won't try to list them. But yeah, that's pretty fascinating. And uh going back a little bit to, I forgot to ask you about when we were talking about tongue ties, oral ties in general. Um, a lot of people are not aware of, and I wasn't for a long time aware of what methods often chiropractors I think have, or I know not everybody, but I think you're one of these chiropractors who has training in a method I can't remember the name of that deals specifically with oral ties and helping helping with all of that. Can you tell us more about how all that works and how that can help?
yeah, there are specifics. So there's kind of two different ways, right? So like when you have kids with more midline problems with lip tie, tongue tie, tension in the body, that usually is going to follow through midline, right? So like the
Mm,
whole digestive system from lips and tongue, but also down into the digestive system in the pelvis.
Oh, wow.
right?
Yeah.
And so I always am looking at the child globally and not just with the lip tie or tongue tie itself, right? We're going, okay, why it has developed this way, but how can we remove as much tension as possible in the system so that because for example, my second child had pretty bad lip tie um, on the top, and it was so functional that it didn't cause any. It didn't need to be revised. He could nurse just fine because we were working with him on some stuff. So there are things like I can do for fascia releasing intraorally with ties, but I'm also still working with the nervous system that causes a lot of that tension in the body anyways. So it's like I have a dentist too, a couple dentists in the area that refer to me because she's doing the dental work sometimes that has to be done. And I'm doing the body work. Or there's like, okay, this actually doesn't have to be revised, but you need to go do body work.
Mm.
And so that's where I think what you're talking about is, yeah, there's specific things that we can do to release that body tension, working with the nervous system.
So, but speaking of, so if a family, let's say there's a family that's not local to you, local to us, that is looking for a
Hmm.
good chiropractor, someone who's going to be able to address their family's needs down to, infant care and that sort of thing, what should they look for in a pediatric chiropractor?
Yes, and actually, if I'm wondering if the website, the I always look up. So when I like my sister is also a chiropractor. She is 6 years younger than me. I would say she's taller and blonder and younger, but it's all true. Um, but she practices. She actually got her training, and which is why I started getting more certifications over the past 15 years as well. But it's called the Pediatric Experience, or PX Docs, DOCS, PX
Oh,
Docs.
okay.
So pxdocs.com, pxdocs.com is a really good way to figure out, like, in your area who would be available that has all this training, from neuroscans to the procedures. They can give not only really good recommendations, but has all the training that is there, and usually has really good connections with other people in the community if there's other things that need to be dealt with on top of it. So like say we're working with somebody who has speech delays, right? we're
Mm,
the speech therapist is blown away that this child that's getting adjusted can progress so much quicker. So now we have communication with, referrals and making sure that these kids get good nervous system care along with
mm,
it.
yeah.
The PX Docs website is a really good one to look for. And that you would know based on a website, probably because there's like a link or something on there. Like we're trained in pediatrics experience.
Nice. Yeah, and
Yeah.
then I think with as with everything else, I feel like most chiropractors are open to meeting people and get building a little bit of a relationship and that sort of thing without any like major commitment and stuff. I Most of the chiropractors that I've encountered have been very kind and warm and welcoming and open to questions and that sort of thing. So I'd say my general advice for all of that, for all any kind of body work, any type of where you're trying to connect with a professional for whatever reason, for the sake of your family, go talk to them, interview them, get to know what their where their area of expertise is, and get a vibe, pick up a vibe. And that's one of the reasons I like you so much, Dr. Torrie, because we vibe for sure. I've encountered other chiropractors, not talking about Dr. Davis. He's great.
My chiropractor and I'm his chiropractor. So
Yeah, you're mine. He's the chiropractor, I think, for my husband and my boys occasionally. You guys share the boys.
yeah.
between the two of you.
Custody.
Yeah, and the boys love you. My boys love you. They have fun with Dr. Davis, but they love you. Just so you know, just a little. So yeah, so you've got a great vibe. I can tell that there's a lot of passion behind what you do, and a lot of love for the work. And I think there are a lot of great chiropractors out there too that are very similar. So it seems to be a field filled with people that are in it for good reasons, and based on passion, and a genuine, like, healing touch, where they know that what they can offer these families and these babies, and growing children and all of that it really makes a difference. And that's what I think drives a lot of people like you. I see that in you, and that's definitely been something that's been so fun about working with you. And again, it does make a huge difference. I mean, I've seen a big difference in my boys, before they were getting regularly adjusted, and now that they're getting regular adjustments. There's just, I mean, they almost never get sick, is one. They seem to be definitely a lot more able to handle the the surprises that they don't want, the upset and all of that kind of stuff. There, it's kind of funny. I notice even when maybe we've skipped a couple, one too many adjustments, it's like, okay, wait,
Yeah,
everybody, they're all at each other's throats a little bit more than usual. So anyway, um, yeah, well, thanks again for joining me for this conversation, and sharing
yeah.
your brilliance with us all. And
I really hope
yeah,
it inspires, yeah, at least one person, one baby to get checked, because when the nerve interference doesn't get resolved, it just grows into something else later on with development. And so, thank you for having me.
yeah,
I hope it
yeah.
inspired somebody. You listeners right there, you can just, if you have any questions, you let me know. I'm happy to explain further too.
Yeah, yeah, and all of your information will be in the show notes for sure. If anybody wants to reach out to you, they can go there to find your contact information and schedule an appointment if they're close by, hopefully. And yeah, all right,
Yeah.
Dr. Torrie, thanks again for hopping on, and I'll see you at our next appointment.
Hey, have an awesome day.
All right, take care. I hope you enjoyed that interview. Feel free to share your input in the comments below, and try to keep things civilized. Remember, we can only do our best with the tools we have at hand. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye for now. Did you know I have a newsletter? If you want to hear about upcoming cohorts, programs, or event updates, and have everything delivered straight to your inbox, head over to my website, earthboundparenting.org, and sign up for the newsletter at the bottom of the page. I only send emails when I have something to share, and often send a little personal note at the end of the news breakdown. So again, if you want to hear from me on the regular, sign up for my newsletter and stay in touch. Intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing in this video is medical or legal advice. By engaging with this content, you agree to take full responsibility for your own experiences and decisions as a result. Everything on this channel is property of Prudence Ministries, a private healing association, unless otherwise stated. Blessed is Adonai, divine sovereign, who brought us to this place and this time for this purpose.